Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of my writing students. So, we are going to delve into the wonderful, wonderful world of finding, using, and citing sources with MLA formatting. There are other types of formatting that you can do in writing. There is APA, Chicago Teradian, but English specifically is going to use MLA formatting, and therefore you are going to be required to use MLA formatting in your essays that you write from me, and potentially for other English courses that you take. So first off, let's talk about the lesson overview. We're going to talk about citing sources, quoting, paraphrasing and summarizing, the four main differences, paraphrasing specifically, summarizing specifically, framing quotes, paraphrases, and summaries, how to show boundaries in your writing, avoiding plagiarism, the forms of plagiarism, works cited page, and as well as a little discussion about sources themselves. All right, let's delve into this. Let's talk about citing sources. When you are using sources, it's not just about collecting them and then shoving them into your writing. You have to keep in mind that using sources in writing is about engaging with them and using them to develop and support your ideas and expand upon them. You can also extend the work of others and advance your own ideas with clarity, authority, and persuasiveness. Ethos is the key here with sources in your writing. You are doing this for ethos, using that credibility. Using sources helps you have more authority by informing and supporting your ideas as well. Citing sources, the usuals with citing, let's talk about those. When you use a source in your writing, whether it is quoted or paraphrased, you must cite it. You will use in-text parenthetical citations for your citations. And citations are at the end of the sentence with the period following the citation itself. So formatting is key. Let's look at an example. So in-text parenthetical citation is here. At the end of the sentence, there's parentheses with the name in it, and then the period comes at the end. That is the format of how citations are done. They always come at the end of the sentence. They're never in the middle. They never are done in the middle. There may be some caveats to that, but generally the information you're going to be using is going to be in the sentence, of the sentence, and then you'll put the citation at the end. So keep that in mind. Some finer details about in-text parenthetical citations. You will always use the author's last name in the citation. Okay? Author's last name. Last name, last name, last name. It's weird. I know we're so used to referring to people by their first name, but we always refer to them by their last name. If there's an actual page number, if it's from a printed journal that you can go pull and read different things from, it'll have page numbers. You will use last name and page number. If it's printed page numbers, 1 out of 12, 2 out of 12, 3 out of 12, you don't do that. You just use page numbers that are shown in your citation. You have an author with more than one source. So maybe you've got one author and you have two sources from them. You need to clarify and specify the source by citing the last name and then the title of the source. Purdue OWL is going to be your best free resource out there for MLA and APA citations if you ever need them. You can always refer back to them. With in-text parenthetical citation, here's the name and page number example. So this sentence, the information comes from a source by Hahn on page 61. So if you go and look by Hahn, page 61, you will find that source. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And then we have the numerous sources with one author. So this sentence beforehand is partly the student's writing, and then the ending is from the source. So they are citing it because it's not all their information. And they're citing Burns' What to Do specifically. So you will go to that one to find that information. But there's another one by Burns, so you have to go look at that. With the last name, if sometimes people have the same last names, maybe two different people. There may be a Sabrina Cravens and a Tabitha Cravens. When you cite by last name, if it's the same last name, you have to specify what the source is. So just keep that in mind. Quoting is one of the big things that people like to use in their writing. Quoting itself is just using word for word the exact wording from the source. Okay? Quotation marks are going to go around the word for word quoted information. You will do this by using brief quotes. Long quotes that require block quoting should not be used. You should not have long sentences of just quoted material. That's not you writing, that's just copy and pasting, and that gets into plagiarism territory, which we will talk about a little bit later. So let's look at this quoted example. You have opening quote, annual consumption, and then the end quote, and then writes Maria Nosanthos of the Korea Times. Word for word, you go to that source, you will find that word for word there. Nothing has been changed. That is quoted information. That is using a sentence for that. So you also, when you have to think about writing quotes, you need to think about introducing and framing your quotes in your essay. You have to introduce them to your audience and frame them. Your quoted information does not explain itself to your writer or how to place your argument. You have to show the context of that. You have to contextualize and show connections. There are 3 ways to use quotes. There's words. So let's say this is going to be very rare, but sometimes your source is going to use a word in a specific way that it's not defined as. You need to put that word in quotes first to show me this word is being used this way, and then you will move on and not use it in quotes. There may be a specific phrase that your author uses that is specific to their writing. You will put those in quotes. And then sentences is what you're all going to usually default to in terms of quoting. I'm well aware of that one. Because most of you are more familiar with sentences and you're more comfortable with sentences. So that's what you're going to default to. So look at this introduction. Introducing quotes and framing them. According to Banbury, Steinrock, and Subramanian. That's introducing my quote. And then I give you the quote. According to, example. As stated by, example. In reference to so-and-so's writing, example. Those things are quoting and framing them. Contextualizing, this is a little bit longer. Pause the video and look at the orange part. That is the context that then the quote explains. Okay? So that's what it means by contextualizing. Explaining to your reader what that source information means in terms of the argument you're making. So let's talk about paraphrasing, summarizing, and the 4 key differences between them. Okay? Paraphrase is going to handle a portion of the text. Summary covers the entirety. So paraphrase portion, summary all. Paraphrase follows the organization of the original source. Summary is going to reorganize content to highlight major points only. Paraphrase is about the same length or shorter than the original text. Summary is significantly shorter than the original text. And a paraphrase is going to look through the text to convey what the author is saying. Summary is going to look at the text to explore strategy, style, reasoning, and other choices. So let's look at paraphrasing specifically. Keep moving myself around. So the usuals of paraphrasing, we can look at the goal is to just explain a portion of the text in your own words. So you are reading something and then looking at somebody and conveying that information to them as you would convey it. Paraphrasing is, of course, as I said, going to be about the same length as or a little bit shorter than the original source. And the paraphrase should sound like you. It's you putting the source into your words. I don't want it to sound like you're chopping up the author's stuff to make it sound like them still. It should still sound like you. But even if you paraphrase, you are going to cite sources. So keep that in mind. Let's look at a couple of examples of paraphrase. Every highlighted piece of information, you will see a citation at the end. That is paraphrasing. So that means this information comes from this source, not word for word, but they put in their own words. You can go find it. Same for this one. This information, not word for word, in their own words. This source, go find it. This information comes from 2 sources. So they use 2 sources. The information ties together, so they put them in one sentence, cited both sources. You can do that. Just remember, you are going to heavily rely on paraphrasing when using your sources. You are going to paraphrase, put in your own words, but you're still also going to contextualize it. How does it apply to the argument you're making? Always keep that in mind. Summarizing is not going to be used as often in your actual essay writing, but it is something that you need to know and do. Summarizing is going to include the goal of capturing the principal idea or ideas of the source in condensed format, so it's smaller, bite-sized. Summary can and will explore the author's choices in writing, which include things like structure, tone, angle, their thesis, the style they choose, maybe their underlying values, and the strategies they use. Are they using pathos in their argument? Are they using lothos? Are they using ethos? There's a concept called kairos. Are they using that? Summary is going to be a key component in understanding your actual sources. So prior to using your sources, you should be able to summarize them and know what they say. And this is going to come into play with doing annotated bibliographies later. You may be asked to do this for other classes or do something similar where you have to summarize your source. So you need to learn how to pull out the main point and the supporting points and show it to your reader. And that's what summary does. This summary is a chapter from a book. As you can tell, it's a whole paragraph. The writer chose it as a whole paragraph. There we go. One chapter down to a whole paragraph. That works, right? Yes? No? It works. Promise you it does. So keep in mind, summary is a much more condensed version. It's still in your words. You still might need to cite things, and you can cite things in summary, but it's your words. Let's talk about framing and not houses. Oh, you better laugh at my jokes out there. But no, framing things like quotes and paraphrases and even summaries. So let's talk about how to show boundaries between your writing and sources. You need to be able to do this because readers need to be able to see the boundaries between your work and the material that you use. So 4 ways to do this are using signal phrases. You can use direct quotations, in-text parenthetical citation, and even connections and contextualizations. Signal phrases indicate where the source material comes from, introducing your sources. Direct quotations, however, may use signal phrases, but they're also going to have material quoted word for word from the source, and it's going to use proper punctuation to show that. Your in-text parenthetical citations show the boundaries as well. And it's going to show your reader the location that you use, where it comes from, web page, source, YouTube videos sometimes. TikToks are becoming a thing now. You can also use documentaries, things like that. The citation says, here's where it comes from. I can go to that and see it. Connections and contextualizations are a little bit more difficult in the fact that it doesn't rely on just simple things like punctuation or quoting or a signal phrase. It actually requires you to put in some work. So you have to connect the source's ideas and information to your ideas. Make it clear how it fits with your own statements and claims. So you can do this by doing things like call out a key point from the source to emphasize it and amplify that point. You can expand on the source material or one of its major points. You can connect the source material to your claims and overall purpose, or rephrase the main point of the source material in simpler terms. When you do framing properly, it allows you to clearly signal the boundaries so your reader knows, okay, you're arguing this information comes from here, it ties in here. Your reader needs to see that. You see it yourself. And I know a lot of you are like, wow, this would be great. A lot of you do it, but you're not contextualizing, and that's where you're missing out. You have to contextualize. You know why you're using the source. Your reader doesn't. You have to explain it to us sometimes, like we're stupid. Hate to say that, but that's how that works. So let's look at an example of signal phrases. M. Venkataramanan and N. Smitha, professors and authors of Causes and Effects of Global Warming, define global warming as, it's a signal phrase. A famous Chinese proverb says, that's a signal phrase. Direct quotation punctuation deals specifically with either using a colon to introduce a quote, and you have to properly word the sentence prior to, and you'll have your quotes. Period will always go inside the quote if there is no citation at the end. Or if you have a citation at the end, you will have the quotes, quote, citation, period at the end. So keep these things in mind. And when you're looking at the example readings, look at how they're citing their sources. Pay attention to those. You're going to learn from that yourself. Okay? And this shows you the in-text parenthetical citations, where they come from, how they're used. The red and green are very specifically in-text parenthetical citations. The orange is a writing citation. But I want parenthetical citations from you. So do the parenthetical citations. Bag it, what to do, bag it. You see those, you see how it's used. Oh, the works cited page. This one is a little bit more difficult to deal with. There's a lot of buts with works cited pages, but we'll get through this. So for your works cited page, it is the end of the essay on its own page, always. So your essay ends on page 3, page 4 is your works cited page. It is going to be in alphabetical order by the first word of the citation. So your citation either has an author to it or a title. If there's no author name, you will always use the title. So you'll either go by ABCs. You start, actually it's numerical then alphabetical. So 1, 2, 3, ABC. So then you'll alphabetize it that way. Citations are going to utilize hanging indents. The first line is not indented, so it's aligned with the left. Every line after, though, is indented. This is easy to do on Microsoft Word, not so easy to do on Google Docs. Just warning you. I actually had to Google how to do it on Google Docs myself. Along with that, the works cited page is going to be titled Works Cited. That's the title of the page. Nothing else is there except works cited. It will be in Times New Roman 12-point font, and it is double spaced. In terms of alphabetizing sources, you do not use the words a, and, or the to alphabetize your sources. So keep that in mind. Here's an example that will show you. So this is alphabetized, starting with the 11th hour because 1 comes before ABC. So we have that, and then we have Baggett, Banbury, Burns. You'll see again, Burns, there's this line. I'm going to explain this. Then you have Doucette, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M. You'll see here this says Making Stuff Cleaner, Nova, host David Pogue. This is no author. Nobody wrote this. So you start just with the title. Okay? And this is what is referred to as the hanging indent. First lines are always left aligned, and then every line after is indented. So indent, 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 indent. And that word makes no sense to me now. With the punctuation of works cited pages, you're going to capitalize each word in the title of books, articles, or movies. Okay? You do not capitalize articles, which are a, in, and the, conjunctions, fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, or prepositions. That's a whole list. Some of you may know a song. I'm not going to list those out. Only capitalize them if they're the first word of the source. So you'll capitalize the if it's the dog came home as a title. The will be capitalized. In terms of punctuation and formatting, book and movie titles are always italicized. Articles, YouTube videos, anything else is going to be in quotation marks. So here you'll see capitalization and punctuation. So Moby Duck, or is not capitalized, neither is the. Synthetic Wilderness, of is not capitalized. Childhood. Harper's Magazine is a magazine, so it is italicized. It's a big work. Then everything else is normal. The 11th Hour is a movie or a documentary, so it's italicized. Okay? In listing author names, and guys, there's so many caveats to these. Like I said, there's a lot of buts, but I'm not going over them. I'll deal with them directly if we need to later in the work you're going to do. If you have no person for the source, so if it doesn't list a human name, if it says cite editors or history editors, skip the name part. You do not put that down. That's not a citation. That's not a human. You only list author, people. You list people, not blank editors. Citations are always going to be last name, comma, first name, and when you write them up. So the example is Cravens, comma, Sabrina. If you have more than one author for a source, I'll say like 3 or 4 people have authored the source, they've all written together, they've collaborated. Then you're going to do last name, first name for the first person, and then everybody else's regular names. So it's Cravens, Sabrina, and Corey Claire Day. And show you some examples of this. You will see there's Making Stuff Cleaner. There is no author here, so we just skip that and we started off with a title. Burns Catherine, last name, first name. And then this is Banbury Catherine, Robert Steinrock, and Soroya Subramanian. If you have an author and they have multiple works and you're using multiple works by them, maybe you're using instructor's lectures or such, you do not have to rewrite their name when you write out the works cited page citation. You will use 3 dashes to denote a repeated name. So this says Craven's Sabrina, source title 1, and do dash dash dash, source title 2. Let me show you this. Burns Catherine, polymers. And then this dash tells me this is by the same person. But what to do with plastic waste is the other one. If you have no authors, can't find a source and can't find a person's name associated with writing that source, do not put down editors or the website name as the author. You put nothing. You just start with the title for the citation. So once more, Making Stuff Cleaner, no author, no editor. Just start off with a title. This is going to be your general citation format. Now, this is very long, I'm well aware, but this is everything that you could possibly come in to a citation. If you don't have that piece of information, no author, skip it. Start with title. Got title of container, self-contained if it's a book. These things are there. Don't panic too much about making sure you have every little piece of information, because not every citation has every little piece of information. Use what you've got. And keep in mind, Purdue OWL is a free resource. It's great to use. It's linked on the course homepage of your class. You can even Google Purdue OWL MLA Guide. Always default to MLA with writing, though. Purdue OWL also does nicely have a source citation generator on it. Always double check, but it is there, so you can use it to help you your writing. I do want to talk, though, about avoiding plagiarism. This entire lecture exists to discuss avoiding plagiarism, because plagiarism is a very big deal in writing, and you do not want to plagiarize for many reasons. Who, what, when, where, why, and how of plagiarism. So, according to the definition of plagiarism by the Council of Writing Program Administrators, in an instructional setting, plagiarism occurs when a writer deliberately uses someone else's language, ideas, or other original, not common knowledge material without acknowledging its source. In college, plagiarism is a form of academic dishonesty, and you have an academic dishonesty policy. You signed it, you agreed to it. Plagiarism can lead to a failing grade on an assignment or the class itself. Plagiarism is not always intentional, though, but the issue is you can never understand intent when, as an instructor or somebody else, you're looking at plagiarism. Do I know you meant to do that or not? No. That's how that works. So academic dishonesty is when you are turning in stuff that is clearly not yours. I've had this happen a few times. Well aware of it. Do not do it. There is no sympathy for cheating in my class, intentional or not. Patch writing is a form of plagiarism. But it's where you cut and paste paragraphs or information from a website or a source into your own, and you don't give attribution to it. You don't cite the sources. It's lazy. You're not doing the writing yourself. You're just copying and pasting. And it's very honestly frustrating to see that. I'd rather you write a well-written short essay than a poorly written plagiarized one. You can also plagiarize by taking ideas and words and not giving attribution to them. You may use things from your sources without using words in a certain way. You need to give citations. If it's common knowledge, cite it. If you aren't sure if it's common knowledge, Wait, if it's common knowledge, you don't have to cite it. Sorry, guys. If you aren't sure if it's common knowledge, cite it. It doesn't hurt. But the problem with plagiarism is that you're cheating yourself out of learning. And it's being lazy and you have no initiative. There's no way to be able to strengthen your communication skills and prepare yourself for other courses and your career. And just keep in mind, plagiarism is a zero tolerance policy here. Always cite your sources. Quoted or paraphrased, you cite it. It doesn't matter. Quoted or paraphrased, just cite it. Plagiarism of any form is an automatic grade of 0F. No citations. Plagiarized. F. Keep that in mind. Don't cheat, guys. Now that I've scared you to death with that, let's talk really quick about sources, though. Talked all about using and citing sources. We're excited. But what about sources that you're going to be using in your actual writing itself? So scholarly sources, academic sources are the go-to for this. There are 3 websites I generally recommend: EBSCOhost, ProQuest, and Google Scholar. The first 2 you have access through the ANC library. The last one you can access for free, but the first 2 you have to actually pay to access them if you're not part of a college. So you have the library, you can access them. Use those. 1, they already have an instant citation for you. Whoop, whoop. 2, you can trust them. They're peer-reviewed, they're journals. It's a great aggregate information area. Use that. What I do not want you to use are sites like Wikipedia, procon.org, LitCharts, SparkNotes. Those are not reliable sources. You can use Wikipedia as a jumping off point of finding sources, but it's not a source to use in your argument. And the general rule for sources, when you're writing, 2/3 of your sources should be from scholarly academic sites. So if you have to have 6 sources, 2/3 of that should be from ProQuest, EBSCO, Google Scholar. How many is 2/3? Gotta do math in my head now. Half is 3, 2/3 is a little 4 out of 6. Here we go. Sorry, guys. So if you have to have 6 sources, 4 of them should be from scholarly academic sites. Generally, you can also use documentaries as long as they're not biased. You are trying to stray away from extreme biases in source writing because that doesn't actually help you understand points. So keep that in mind. With your sources, there is going to be videos on how to use EBSCO and how to use ProQuest. Google Scholar works very similarly. There's probably going to be a video about that as well. But do not use things like Wikipedia and procon.org. No procon.org. Most of you really like that, and I don't know why. Stop it. All right, guys? Comments, questions, or concerns? Your first point of contact is going to be your class cohort. Always remember that. The second point of contact is myself. You got my email address. Don't forget your discussion forum for this lecture as well. Have a great day, guys. I know citing sources is not always fun, but once you get into the groove of doing things, you'll finally learn to enjoy it. See you later. Bye.